All right, friends. Today we are going to do another story where we are going to think about what life lesson we're learning from the fiction story. And remember, we do that by paying attention to what the problem is and how the characters solve the problem. And does that teach the characters anything? Do they realize anything? What does that teach us? So we're going to get started, and we're actually going to read this book on epic. So if you want to read it later on your own, you can do that too. Here we go. All right, the book that we are going to read today is called Upstairs Mouse, Downstairs Mole. And the cool thing about epic is over here, you can see the little blurb. It says upstairs mouse, downstairs mole. Mouse and mole are neighbors and friends. Sometimes friends make mistakes. They always try to help each other out. So I can already tell based on that blurb that the lesson in this book's probably going to be something about friendship. And right off the bat, just looking at the front cover and thinking about the blurb, I wonder if this is going to be kind of like a frog and toad book, where two animals that are kind of similar are really great friends. Let's read Upstairs Mouse, Downstairs Mole. So there's a table of contents. We're just going to read this first story today. And it says clean and tidy. That's the chapter we're going to read today. And look at this. It says, for friends of Frog and Toad. Sometimes authors dedicate their books. And here is a dedication. And remember how on that first page I said, this book looks like it's going to remind me of Frog and Toad? It looks like the author is thinking, hey, if you like Frog and Toad, you're going to like this book. All right, clean and tidy. Mouse and Mole are neighbors. Mouse lives in a house inside an oak tree. Mole lives in a hole under the house of Mouse. Every morning, Mole swept his hole. Sweep, sweep, sweep. Mole liked his hole nice and tidy. Every evening, Mouse swept her house. Sweep, sweep, sweep. Mouse kept her house nice and clean. But when Mouse swept her house, the dirt went below into Mole's hole. This made Mole angry. Look at that. Well, the dirt's falling down. He knocked on Mouse's door. Tap, tap, tap. Evening, Mole, said Mouse. Evening, Mouse, said Mole. Did you know that when you sweep all your dirt, it goes down into my hole? That didn't sound right as I scooped those words. I'm going to try that again. That's what you can do too. Did you know that when you sweep all your dirt, it goes down into my hole? I sweep my place nice and tidy in the morning, but by evening, it needs to be swept all over again. If you sweep in the morning, said Mouse, and then again in the evening, why, you have twice as much work as I do. That does not seem fair. Together they sat down on the stoop. Mouse twirled her tail. Mole rubbed his snout. So it seems like they have a little bit of a problem right now. Whereas Mouse sweeps, the dirt from Mouse's house goes down into Mole's house and makes it dirty all over again. I have an idea, squeaked Mouse. She told Mole her new plan. They shook paws. Good night, said Mouse to Mole. Good night, said Mole to Mouse. The next morning when Mole woke up, he did not sweep his hole. At 12 o'clock sharp, he grabbed his broom and knocked on Mouse's door. Tap, tap, tap. So Mole took his broom up to Mouse's house. I wonder what they're going to do up there. Good afternoon, said Mole to Mouse. Good afternoon, said Mouse to Mole. Mouse ran to fetch her broom. Together they swept Mouse's house until it was nice and clean. Why, it only took us half the time it takes to sweep my house, said Mouse. It took half the time because there were two people doing it, huh? Next, they marched downstairs and swept Mole's hole until it was nice and tidy. Together, it had taken less time to sweep both places than it took for each of them to do just one. So I want you to think about that for a second. We're seeing a solution here to the problem that the dirt from Mouse's house went down into Mole's. So Mole went up and helped Mouse, and then Mouse came down and helped Mole, and it said together it had taken less time to sweep both places than it took for each of them to do just one. Do you think they're learning a lesson in here? I'm not going to tell you. I want you to think about it. That was fast, said Mole. Our houses are clean and tidy, thanks to you. Now what? I've been thinking of a garden, said Mouse. Outside, Mouse and Mole circled the tree. Mole rubbed his snout. Where should we put it? How about in back, said Mouse, twirling her tail. Then we will have a backyard. Good thinking, exclaimed Mole. First, they dug up a patch of grass. Next, they raked the dirt until it was soft. Mole dug a row of holes. Mouse dropped a seed into each one. Then it was Mouse's turn to dig and Mole's to plant. Back and forth they went until the garden was finished. Interesting. It sounds like they were taking turns. Then it was Mouse's turn to dig and Mole's turn to plant. Whew, said Mole. That was hard work. But only half as hard thanks to you, said Mouse. I see that they were working together and it went faster. That's what Mouse said, but only half as hard thanks to you. They decided to take a nap. Mole went down into his hole. Mouse went inside her house. Both were much too tired to bother with the dirt they tracked into their clean and tidy homes. All right, so let's take a second to think about the problem and solution. And it sounds like there were actually a couple of problems in this story, but the solution was the same. And what that taught Mouse and Mole and what it can teach us. So pause the video for a second and think about that. All right, so let's think about the problem and the solution in Upstairs Mouse, Downstairs Mole. So take a second and think about the problem if you haven't already. Pause the video if you need another time to think, a little bit more time. If you said the problem was they had all these chores to do and they were taking a long time, you are correct. They were sweeping, and one of the problems was when Mouse swept, she lived upstairs, and her dirt went down to Mole's house, and Mole had already swept. So they both cleaned their houses, so they both had chores to do, and then they also wanted to plant a garden. And how did they solve that problem? What did they do to make their lives easier? What did they do? Pause the video for a second if you need a moment to think about that. They solved their problem by working together. Is that what you said? Did you notice that in the book, they kept saying, well, this job is easier, this job is faster because we're working together. Have you ever heard teamwork makes the dream work? I'm pretty sure I've said that to you before. But yeah, when they worked together, their jobs went faster. That Mole helped Mouse sweep the house upstairs, and then Mouse came downstairs and helped Mole sweep up all the dirt that came down from Mouse's house as well, and that went super fast. And then they took turns planting the garden together, and that went super fast. It wasn't as hard as it would have been with just one person. So what does that mean for us? Take a second to think about that. What life lesson is this story teaching us? What did the characters realize that we could realize in our own lives as well? If you said working together, you are correct. When we work together, it makes our lives so much easier. When we have a big mess to clean up at school, it goes so much faster when a lot of us help than if just one person's doing it. Same thing at home. Same thing with everything, really. Miss Thompson and I work as a team a lot, and things go so much faster and easier because we're helping each other out. Teamwork really does make the dream work, and that's what we learned in this story. Work together. Awesome job, you guys. You're doing a great job with something that's really tricky. Finding the life lesson in stories can be difficult, but you guys have done awesome thinking this week. Keep up your amazing work. And we only read that first chapter of Upstairs Mouse, Downstairs Mole. That book is a lot like the Frog and Toad books, where each chapter is its own story. So if you enjoyed that, you should go back onto Epic and finish reading the rest of the book.